Guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at just sort of like a history of astrology. I will be sort of going through sort of just like the basics here, and there will be some more in-depth videos coming up on some of the different aspects and stuff. So Western astrology, which is the one that has like the star signs, is a direct continuation of Hellenistic astrology. The 12 signs are based on creatures and characters from Greek mythology for the most part. There are a couple that don't quite translate across from the original Babylonian. Hellenistic astrology was, and like the continuation that we have comes from the stuff that was recorded by Ptolemy. When Ptolemy originally recorded the star signs in the sky, he made a list of 48. So there are 48 Ptolemaic constellations. Modern day there's 88, and all that is some of them are just like Ptolemy would have like a big one sort of thing, and modern day some of those have just been divided into two separate ones. So that's kind of interesting to look at as well. If you're into constellations and stargazing, it's probably an interesting thing to know. For instance, the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper are part of the constellations Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, which are bears. They are both Ptolemaic constellations as well. So if you can find the Big Dipper, you're actually looking at part of Ursa Major. If I'm remembering correctly, you're looking at it at the head and shoulders of the bear. So you're just missing the back half of it, which is interesting. Of those 48 that Ptolemy recorded, the original 12 and current 12 as if there's a difference, constellations of the zodiac are part of that. So each of those has some connection to Greek mythology as well within their own personal history. I will get a little bit more in-depth to each sign's specific history in their own videos. So stick around if you want to find out what those are. And so so Ptolemy originally recorded those in the 2nd century. And as I said, it was in turn partly based on concepts from Babylonian tradition. Specifically, the division of the ecliptic in 12 equal sectors is a Babylonian conceptual construct. Now, the reason 12 is used is not because 12 fits into 360 on a factor of 30. It's actually because the Babylonians counted in base 60, using their hands, and this is the thing that I found out recently. But the way they do it is that they use one hand to count to 12, and then the other hand to count multiples thereof. And once you've finished, you'll have 60. And they do that by taking their thumb and putting it to their knuckles. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then so it's 12, 24, 36, 48, 60. But yeah, so you've got 3 on each 4 fingers because you're counting with your thumb. So that's why 12. That's why 12. Because it's just the amount you can count on one hand. By the 4th century, Babylonian astronomy and its system of celestial omens had influenced the culture of Greece, as did the astronomy of Egypt by the late 2nd century. This resulted, unlike the Mesopotamian tradition, in a strong focus on the birth chart of the individual, and that was the creation of horoscopic astrology, which is the stuff that you'll probably read in the newspaper that a lot of people think is full of tripe. And that obviously employs the use of the ascendant or the rising degree of the ecliptic at the time of birth, and the 12 houses, the ascendant sign, the 12 houses. These are all things that I can get into in other videos. The ascendant, the sun and the moon sign are sort of the big three. The houses are their own thing entirely. The houses exist and the signs can sort of move through them. But at the same time, house 1 associates with sign 1, which is Aries. So it can get a bit confusing, a bit overwhelming. But I'm here to try and simplify it for those of you that are interested in astrology as much as I am. Association with the astrological signs, association of the astrological signs with Empedocles' 4 classical elements, so fire, earth, air and water, was another important development in the characterization of the 12 signs. With those came the 3 modalities of cardinal, fixed and mutable energy, and the reason I've counted those, listed those in those orders is because that's the order that they cycle through. So Aries is a cardinal fire sign. Then the next one is Taurus, which is a fixed earth sign. Gemini is next, and it's the mutable air sign. And then you come to water and back to the cardinal sign for Cancer. What's interesting about the cardinal signs is that the fire sign and the air sign sit on the what's called the celestial equator, and the earth and the water sign sit on the top and the bottom end of the elliptical, because it's not in perfect line with our geographical equator. It's sort of tilted, and obviously, so therefore you have a north end and a south end. They're known as nodes. I believe they're called the nodes, and yeah, the top and the bottom end are Cancer and Capricorn, which also have their own meridians in geography. That's why they're named as such, because they are sort of in line with the elliptical. So if you've ever wondered why they were known as the Tropics of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, that's why. The body of astrological tradition, as it stood by the 2nd century, is described in Ptolemy's Tetrabiblos, which is the seminal work for later astronomical tradition, not only in the West, but also in India and in Islam, or the Islamic sphere, and has remained a reference for almost 17 centuries, as later traditions made few substantial changes to its core teachings. The Indian one is probably the one that sticks the closest. They take what's known as the sidereal zodiac, whereas Western astrology, as we're now calling it, uses the tropical zodiac. And really the difference there is that I can't for the life of me remember which one's which, but one of them sort of sticks to like a progression of, I think it might be like a progression of seasons or something, whereas the other one, I think tropical is the one that's like by date. So, you know, if you're born between, say like the 21st of March and the 22nd of April or whatever, you're an Aries. That's that one, whereas the other one sort of focuses, I can't remember exactly what it sticks to, but they do sort of slowly drift apart, and then sort of once it gets to a point where it's like completely in line again, but just with the next sign, it just sort of resets itself. And we are currently getting very close to that point where it's going to have to reset itself again, which is kind of cool. I'm not entirely sure what the influences on the Islamic sphere are. That is going to be something I'm going to have to look into and learn myself before I can tell you about it. So that's probably going to be what I look at next as far as astrology is concerned. Cool. So obviously we know that the signs start with Aries, and then we've got Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, as I've already mentioned. Then it goes Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. Pretty sure we all know their symbols, we all know their numbers. What's known as the elliptical longitude isn't hard to figure out. 0 to 30. For Aries, and then each multiple of 30 thereafter until you get to 360. But it is worth pointing out that 0.0 is counted as a degree. So it's actually, technically speaking, 0 to 29 for Aries, and then then 30 to 59, and so on and so forth, which brings Pisces to being 330 to 359, because then 360 is just 0 again. It's kind of like the midnight. It's the 24th hour, but it resets back to 0 as if you're looking at like 24-hour time, if that makes sense. And the names of the signs are in their original Latin. So if you translate them, it's literally the ram, the bull, the twins, the crab, the lion. Virgo is the maiden, or like the virgin. Libra is the scales, the scorpion. Sagittarius is the archer. Sometimes it's known as the centaur, but considering the centaur was actually a creature that they would have had in their mythology, I don't see why they would call it Sagittarius instead of just Centaurus. So I'm pretty sure it just means archer. Capricorn is the goat. Aquarius means the water bearer. We have some stuff to discuss when we get to Aquarius. And Pisces is the fish. All imaginative, aren't they? Cool, where are we at? Alright. Now, astrology is, despite having ology at the end, is not the study of, and therefore a science. It actually falls more into a category of metaphysics, or a study of that which is beyond the physical. It's similar to other fields that are founded on ancient theories of energy patterns like feng shui or acupuncture or yoga, which are all, if you look at them, very like new age spiritual practices. Astrology, feng shui, yoga, acupuncture is like using little needles to press like specific pressure points to release energy within your body. Astrology at high levels is a mastery of its particular science and the intuitive arts. As the earliest known ordering of existence long before recorded history, it's also been called the mother of all sciences. And it's just a fun thing to get into. Astrology's premise is that the planetary movements influence the moments in time. Since we're part of the story of the universe, our moment of birth recorded on the celestial clock is meaningful. This is where you get your birth chart. The planets continue to move, engaging with the fixed stars in time energy of our birth chart. And so today we can draw on the myths, the symbolic associations, and the wisdom of past astrologers to come up with our own intuitive languages, which means that it is entirely up to you how you decipher all of this and how you read it. So there's not necessarily a one true way sort of a thing, and I think that's the part that most people don't understand. They look at it and they go word for word, well, that didn't happen, so it must be lying, instead of opening themselves up to the idea that it could be referring to some other part of their life, as well as there's, generally speaking, a 80% accuracy rule that at least I operate under, whereby 20% of it may not refer to me if we're reading like my sun sign, for instance, reading the horoscope for my sun sign. 80% of that's going to happen to me. You know, I can't tell which 80% to begin with, but if I sort of look back at it, yeah, in a way that did, and then in a way that did. But that's because, and the reason I go with the 8% rule is because with 8 now billion people on Earth, there's a lot of people that share your star sign, so they've all got to be encompassed in that too. And that's why looking at different zodiacs as well, like the Chinese one, the Celtic tree signs, there's a whole bunch of other ones like Native American spirit animals, all these sorts of things can give you sort of a much fuller idea, and it's actually really interesting when you look at all these things, how often certain phrases repeat themselves throughout your specific signs in all these different zodiacs, and we will be doing videos on the other zodiacs. I will let you know what they are, sort of give you an idea of them, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. Now, I got into astrology for the same reason that this next paragraph has. It's an incredible tool of self-discovery, no matter how far you decide to take it. At first, pieces of the puzzle may not seem to fit, but if you stick with it at certain points, or at a certain point, it clicks and the orchestrations of the cosmic dance make sense. Basically, I was having existential sort of like identity crisis, and so I decided to I basically did a Doctor Strange, and I turned to mysticism to try and find a way out, because everything else that I was doing just wasn't helping me. And yeah, like I said, it is surprising how much you can sort of discover about yourself. It may help you uncover some hidden talent you didn't know you had, or you didn't realize you had, or maybe it's, it'll point out something that you've just sort of taken for granted, thinking that everyone can do it, but it's uniquely a trait that is you. And it's always really cool when you find that sort of stuff out. So yeah, that's a little bit about my backstory and why astrology is such a big thing for me. And obviously that then sort of led to doing tarot and other types of divination, which yeah, I do for fun. Sometimes it can get real, and it's always, when it does get real, it's always a good idea to sort of go, okay, well, let's have a look at this. Why does this feel real? But yeah, So if life seems like a series of meaningless events, astrology can be a comforting sign that perhaps things happen for a reason. It can shine a light on inner contradictions and natural strengths. As a map of the psyche, the birth chart is a guide to self-understanding that never stops revealing new layers of insight. So there are 3 parts to any birth sign. Like I said, there's the planet, the sign itself, and the house. We will look at ruling planets. We will look at the different star signs. We will look at the 12 houses, as well as looking at the element, the different modalities, what they mean. There's a whole big box of stuff to unpack here, and we're going to try and go through it one at a time. So after learning about planets, signs and houses, it'll be time to look at aspects. This is the relationship between the players in your birth chart. Do they square each other, which would be all the cardinal signs, or all the mutable signs, or all the fixed signs, where they're sort of going to make a square on your birth chart, or are they in harmony with trines, which is just a triangle, or sextiles, which is every second one. Interesting thing there is trines, generally speaking, are your 3 of an element. So you'll have 1 of each modality, but they'll all be the same element. And the sextiles are essentially if you just did 2 triangles, like a Star of David style thing. But they'll all those signs will have the same polarity. So there's, like I said, whole big box. Alright. I might finish with this bit. So if you're interested in getting into astrology, it's said that there is truth in stereotypes, and that's where they come from in the first place. The essence of each sign's energy has built up a reputation. So, for instance, this one gives the example of Gemini is a chatty, gossipy, sort of person. Scorpio can be very sultry and very intense. Virgo is a purist, a bit of a neat freak, etc. Hold those loosely as you make your own observations. Because, the sign itself might have its own energy, but then its element gives it another layer, and its modality gives it another layer. And wherever it sits in your birth chart gives it another layer, if it's in your birth chart at all. So the sun sign is the essence of the basic nature in the broadest possible strokes. The rest of the chart fills in the details. Hold your sun sign in mind as you go to learn on them at the moon. Your sun sign is basically the one that you would tell someone when they ask you what your star sign is. That's your sun sign. The moon sign and the ascendant sign are the other big 2 on your birth chart, and they can be different, but are not necessarily. And we will, like I said, we will look at birth charts in another video. And we will at some point get to compatibilities and stuff. So don't worry about that. So we'll touch on that at a later point. But that's all I've got for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new here, and ring that notification bell if you want to be notified when I upload new videos. Let me know your star signs in the comments down below. If you already know your birth chart and your big 3, list those down below, because it can kind of be a bit revealing when you sort of look at it. And if you would like, I will in the next video in this series looking at astrology, I will, if you want me to, I will look at your comments and I will, sort of give you what my basic like assumption would be based on your star signs. If that sounds like something you would like to do. But yeah, until next time guys, keep your head screwed on.